Calling this meeting of the Moore County Board of Education into session. First of all, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, second by Ms. Bruno. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Locklear, why don't you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Going to the Vice Chair.
If y'all would join me for just a minute for a moment of silence, prayer, and reflection, please. Thank you.
Okay. So, by the way, we do find that we have 5 people. Okay, fantastic. So we do have a quorum.
and Ms. Codwell is joining us
Ms.
via
Caldwell
the phone.
is on the phone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So all we have missing is Mr. Holmes, who is not going to be here. Okay. So, Dr. Locklear, let's go to our first item, which is our amended FY 23-24 budget resolution for the fourth quarter.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, board members. Thank you for joining us today for our combined work session and business meeting. I have Ms. Edmonds up first for our first pending action item. This is the basically commonly known as the end-of-year closeout for our finance department, budget department. And Ms. Edmonds and her team has done a fabulous job of doing that again this year. And I just want to lead off by saying thank you to Mrs. Edmonds and her team. A lot of hours, a lot of time spent putting together and ending our budget and doing it successfully and getting every blood out of the turnip. Is that how it goes? For the state budget, using every penny we can out of that, and so on the needs of the district. So I just want to thank Ms. Edmonds for that. This is our amended FY 23-24 budget resolution for the fourth quarter, the final. This is what's been amended and changed and finalized since your June meeting, and we're bringing this to you for Ms. Edmonds to walk through with you. But again, this is those quarterly budget resolutions that we're beginning you based on the changes and updates from the state. So this is the final one for this fiscal year. So I'll turn it over to Mrs. Edmonds to walk us through that. As we've made part of these updates, we also will update you on where we believe we will be with local fund balance, as well as now we'll begin to periodically also give you updates on Fund 8, which is the restricted revenue source that we have as well. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Evans.
This is the allotment revision through 78, just one note of that. For our state public school funds, we are at $102,414,710. That is an increase of $261,133. For our local current fund, we're at $39,324,623. There's no change. Federal program fund is at $20,048,033. That was an increase of $94,406. Our local capital fund is at $6,787,925, and this is an increase of $44,672. Our school nutrition fund is at $8,375,988. There is no change. Our after-school care fund is at $1,500,000. There is no change. And our local operations fund is at $11,673,659. And that was an increase of $996,315. Our total amended budget for fiscal year 23-24 is $190,124,938. This is an increase of $1,396,526. And now we'll look at our budget details. budget details. It is the one that says the fourth quarter revision details. I'm sorry, second one. For state, the $261,133 increase for PRCs 02, 11, 14, 27, 32, 34, 54, 56, 61, 69, and 131. Those were based off of allotment revision 69 that we were given. That came in on, I don't think I've got the actual date, but it was allotment revision 69, and that was for non-reoccurring retirement funds. PRC 11 was for paid parental leave, and that was a guaranteed allotment adjustment. There was no increase for the local current fund. The federal program fund, PRC 082, there was an increase of $10,000. That was for allotment revision 67, and that's approval logs that went through 5/21/24 that came in after 5/21/24. And then federal 115 was also based off of allotment revision 67. That was an increase of $84,406.68. Again, off that same approval log of 5/21/24. Capital outlay, there was an increase of $44,672.13, and that was for our PRC 439, which is the SVPP 21 radio grant. This was adjusting our revenues to actual for PRC 439. No increase for the school nutrition or after-school care fund. The last one is our restricted revenue fund. That was the increase of $996,314.81. For the Medicaid cost report, which is PRC 304, there was an increase of $773,306.64. PRC 306 was Medicaid fee-for-service. That was an increase of $91,965.17. PRC 308, impact aid, was an additional $111,043. PRC 472 and 473 were both wildlife resources grant. One was at Pinckney and one was at Pinecrest for $10,000 each. Are there any questions about our allotment revision details?
I have a couple questions. One I hear Pauline asking. So, what's a wildlife resources grant, and what do we have to do to earn that money? There's got to be strings tied to it.
So that is a grant that's earned at the school level, and I'm not really sure what is written in the grant because that grant is specific to that school. So every school's grant is a little different. But the money is held here, and as they spend the money, they'll send up the expenses, and we will pay it based on, they send us a copy of the grant, and we make sure it's in the grant.
Yeah.
It's usually for something that is outdoor related, like an outdoor learning activity or outdoor learning garden or trail or something like that. And you have to spend it on what the grant's written for to the North Carolina Wildlife. So that's my understanding.
Okay, could I ask a question when we're on this?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yes, I yield my time to
Thank
Ms.
you,
Bruno.
David. Would that grant have anything to do with getting rid of the birds that are at Pinckney nibbling on the roof?
No, ma'am, that's a different
different?
strategy that Ms. Purvis is working.
Okay,
That is correct.
very good.
This grant is to feed and encourage those birds. There's a different opposing grant to get rid of those birds. That's just the way government funding works.
Just to clarify, we have a vulture problem at Pinckney where they're eating away at our roofing and things of that nature, and so we're working on some strategies to alleviate that issue. Yeah.
I just have a couple high-level questions. One is, I see the ending amount of this budget is $190 million. That's what we're closing this budget out. Do you recall what the beginning budgeted amount was when we first started this?
It's on
Before all the
actual
modifications.
the first link on there, the resolution, yes. No, it is the first link, that one. So the original is the one that's December. I don't have the total. I don't know that it shows me a total on this page, but that's each individual one.
So we budgeted, we'd have to add all these up, right? 96 million plus 39 million plus, that doesn't make sense. It'd be 170, 190,
Okay, I think I may, let's see.
yeah, because
So our resolution, let me make sure this is the same. I wasn't.
I'm just always
Okay,
interested in
so-
the growth of these budgets over our resolutions.
So our resolution originally was a total of $181,484,507.
Okay, so that was the original budget when we went into this fiscal year, and it grew from 181 to 190, or about 5%, I would say.
Which included the funding formula agreement, additional funds from there from the local, and then additional state allotments,
Yeah,
federal, et
sure,
cetera.
right,
Yep.
yeah, no, we-
All,
Okay.
all the various funding streams, yes, sir.
Okay, and then two other questions that are related. What was the total amount of local operational funding that we got this year? What's the local funding?
It's the 39 million, well, hold on a second, I don't know if I've got it broken down.
You're talking about this fiscal year as opposed to
Yes,
next
yes,
fiscal year?
Yes, this fiscal year,
Yeah.
what the amount of local funding is.
Yeah, I've got it. That 39 million includes other things. I can get that for you.
Okay, yeah, I'm interested in two numbers, what the amount of local funding was for this year that we appear to be closing out, and then what the forecasted amount is based upon the budget that was just passed by the county commissioners. I would like those two numbers, please. That is all my questions at this time. Thank you.
Other questions, members of the board? I do have one question myself. I did notice our lunch money account, for lack of a better term, has about $8 million in it. Am I correct? Is that current? Is
Yes,
that,
child nutrition, the budget was 8,375,000.
okay, that's the budget.
That's
Okay,
just the
that's not
budget.
that's not the amount of money that's in it.
That's correct.
Okay, then I misunderstood, and I apologize. Okay. Thought it was a rather large amount to have in there. Okay. So, was there another portion of your presentation? Okay, continue.
Now we'll look at our projected local Fund 2 balance as of June 28th. And this is our projected still, even though we're at year end, just because our auditors have not been in to if there's anything else that comes up. But it should stay around an additional, we've added to our fund balance $600,206.61. So that is our fund balance gain for Fund 2. And then we have our projected unused fund balance that was assigned for 23-24 is the $2,776,206. We had unassigned fund balance of $2,222,208, making our projected fund balance for June 30th $4,995,414. And then you take away the $2 million floor. That leaves our projected fund balance above that $2 million floor at $2,995,414.
So,
And-
so at the end of this fiscal year, we will have about $4 million in fund balance. Am I correct?
Almost 5 million.
It's almost
Almost $5 million. Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
that is Fund 2's fund balance.
It's Fund 2. Okay, remind us once again the difference, what Fund 2 is?
Fund 2 is our local general fund,
Okay.
and Fund 8 is our restricted revenue fund.
Okay. Thank
From
you.
reimbursements.
Right.
Reimbursements.
I would note, since we're talking about Fund 2, and in that budget update that Tina and I sent out to the board last week, she noted projected fund balance, based on where the county commissioner budget came in, how much fund balance we would be projected to assign as a board to balance our budget. And she projected that we'd be needing to assign based on where the county commissioners came in with their budget, based on if the state sticks to the budget they passed in their biennial, which it does look like that's where they're going to be with the 3% salary increases. We would be assigning $2,371,228 to balance the local budget for next year. That would leave above the $2 million floor. Above the $2 million floor that would leave $624,186.61 above the $2 million floor, which is revised from what was sent out earlier in the week, because we now know that we're able to put a little bit more back in the fund balance than was anticipated at the end of May. So just wanted to note that with you as we're talking about this. So again, instead of dipping below the $2 million floor, which is what was projected last week, we would be $600,000 above the $2 million floor.
So, Dr. Locklear, I have a question on that. I was driving down the road a couple weeks ago, and something dawned on me. You've been very careful. Every time we talk about the budget, you say this is a fully staffed budget, okay? Which means that you're not forecasting any vacancies in this budget. You're assuming that 100% of our personnel positions are filled, correct?
A full employment budget,
Okay.
as the budget I recommend to you as a board is a full
Right. Is it
employed
full-
budget.
So
Yes, sir.
the budget's assuming that every position's filled.
Yes,
Which
sir.
of course we know isn't going to be the case. So I have a couple questions on that, and one is what percentage of positions roughly, just order of magnitude, were unfilled this year, and how much money did that represent that we did not spend on pay? I mean, is it 10% of the positions that are vacant, or 5% representing 5 million or 10 million? I'm just looking for an order of magnitude, because since our budget's assuming those positions are filled, and we know that a large portion of them are going to be unfilled, I think we're going to end up with 5 to 8 million extra dollars that's not being forecasted.
Well, the best way I can answer that question is to say that of the 2.1 million that was assigned, is that correct number, Tina? 2.1 million that was assigned in the board's budget this year from local fund balance, we did not use that. And we're actually adding 600,000
Yeah, no,
to
I'm
the
sorry.
budget.
Yeah,
So the best way I can answer that for you is to say that I would say the great majority of not using the assigned fund balance to this year's budget is because of vacancies. So that's probably the best way I can answer that question. I don't have a percentage or in front of me, but that's probably the best way I can
well,
answer.
let's back into it, because I'm just wanting to get an order of magnitude. Because, well, let's say it's $2 million, averaging $75,000 per full-time position by the time you count benefits and all. That's only 26 vacant positions. Let's round up to 30. And how many vacant positions do we have right now, full-time, district-wide, approximately? Is it 100? Is it 75?
I couldn't answer that off the top of my head. I'd have to get Dr. Patterson to gather that information for us. I don't have it off the top of my head.
So we don't have a guess?
I would rather not guess. I'd rather have the information.
Well, I'll guess then.
Mhm.
So we have 1,800 employees, right? And let's say that's, let's say we have 7% vacancies. I'm just speculating. That's 126 vacancies times, and let's say $70,000 per full-time employee. 126 times, well, let's use 60,000 by the time you add benefits. That's $7.5 million in wages we're not going to pay, assuming that 7%. I don't know what the percentage
Yeah,
is.
I would garner to say that we've gone anywhere from 40 to 80 vacancies at any one time. That's including all classified, part-time, and
Yeah.
full-time certified positions. So, again, I don't have that data in front of me,
Right.
but I think the reason we did not spend assigned fund balance is greatly because of vacancies. It's also because Ms. Edmonds and her team are always using every bit of the state money.
Yeah,
but-
I'm not, so
Yeah.
what, the only point I'm making, so you said between 40 and 80 vacancies, we'll use 60, and I'll lower the number to $50,000 for a full-time equivalent, because the load for benefits is 25%, so that would be someone making 40,000 a year. Is, we spend 50,000, that's $3 billion. The point that I'm making to my fellow board members and the public is, since it's a fully funded, or they're assuming fully staffed positions, there's at least $3 million in there that we know isn't going to be spent. And I want to make sure that when that money isn't spent, that money is deliberately prioritized and spent by this board, not just, $40,000 here and $30,000 there, because $3 million, it's at least $3 million, and that's real money. And to project a fully staffed budget when we know it's not going to be fully staffed, it's understating how much money we're going to have left over at the end of next fiscal year. That's my only point. And it would be nice to put actual numbers to that. Here's our historic, here's how many positions we had empty last year or the current year, and here's how much we saved on payroll, because, some portion of that, hopefully our recruiting efforts are successful. But there's going to be at least $3 million extra dollars that's not accounted for in this budget.
Question.
That's it. Thank you.
Can these funds, these excess quote funds be slid to the next FY?
That's essentially, yes, sir. That's essentially what we're doing in the next year's budget. It's
Okay.
because of not spending the fund balance. The board now has, and in your preliminary budget, you did assign fund balance into
Right.
next year's budget to balance it. So that's essentially what the board is doing when we don't spend fund balance. It's kind of keeping us at the same level where we're able to assign that fund balance into the next year. And that's been helping us balance our budget. This will be the fourth cycle that we've done that. I believe I'm saying that correctly. So yes, sir. That
So
is
it's
correct.
just kind of standard procedure, manage that money into the next FY. So I'm not certain what the major issue is.
Well, and if we hire, which, as Mr. Hensley said, we've been working hard on recruitment efforts, and we feel we may be in a little better place, but if we are a fully employed district next year, we would be spending that assigned fund balance, and so that's the difference. But it's been a challenge, as Mr. Hensley notes, being fully employed.
Thank you.
All right. Anything further? Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to let Mr. Hensley know that there are 222 vacancies on the internet right now for employment, and that includes the police officers.
But
So
Hear me?
if we take the 220 vacancies and move it down to 40,000 a year, that's 8.8 million. My point is this, is to assume a fully staffed budget, of fully staffed positions, when we know that's not the case. There's going to be between $3 million in savings in unfilled positions, going up to using Ms. Caldwell's at $40,000 each. 220 positions is approaching $9 million. So my only point is that this should be forecasted, and we should keep an eye on it so that that chunk of money is passed down. And again, it needs to be a deliberate decision based upon board priorities of how that money's spent.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Locklear, you wanted to say something?
No, sir. Just that
Okay.
I don't disagree, and I think and I appreciate that thought process, and I do believe the board's done that with your budgets and using fund balance to balance the budget. So, but I agree with what Mr. Hensley said. The board does need to be thoughtful about how we look at fund balances and how we assign that. Agreed.
The only thing I might want to point out is that this is July. Just today is July. So we're likely to have a lot of positions vacant, I assume, that come August, a lot fewer of those positions will be vacant. Am I correct, Dr. Locklear?
That's certainly the plan. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, could I say something?
Yes.
I want somebody to explain how we're using the fund balance to balance the budget for the next year, and we've been doing this for 4 years?
Yes, ma'am. The board has assigned basically out of your savings account, when you've approved your budget, your total budget, including your local budget, monies from your savings account, the fund balance, to balance it based on what the projected cost of the year we're going to be. We have not spent, the district has not spent that fund balance that's been appropriated to balance the budget. It's been assigned and kind of reinvested into the next year in order to do that again. That's what the board approved in your preliminary budget this year, And so that's been the practice for, I think, if I'm correct, the fourth budget cycle that the board's looked at doing that. Yes, ma'am.
Further questions, Mr. Hensley?
Just an observation based upon what Ms. Bruno said is, yeah, we've been dipping into our savings, and last year, $190 million. That's a high water mark. This year's budget's 160, 166. So we managed to spend almost $200 million while dipping into our savings, and that's up from, like, I think our annual budget was $120 million when 4 years ago when I was voted on this board. So we've gone from spending $120 million a year to, and again, it might be lower, you know, but in that ball, we went in 3.5 years from spending $120 million a year to spending $190 million a year, and now we're back down to 160. But we're, you know, easily 30% above what our budget was 3 years ago, with no noticeable increase in enrollment. So anyway, that's, you know, there's observations to be made here.
If we're, let me get this, thank you. We have a budget, then why are we spending the money that we are saving? That's my point.
You're required as a school board to have a balanced budget.
Okay.
And so based on the local revenue we know we're getting from the county, and then based on the projected costs from a local perspective, the board has assigned their fund balance over the last 4 budget cycles to make sure you're balanced on what our projected costs are versus what our revenue is. So we've been using some of the fund balance as revenue to
But we
balance
shouldn't
the
be
budget.
doing that.
It'd be my preference not to either.
Well,
but we're in a situation and have been in a situation, it really takes us back, if you look historically, it takes us back to when the state budget included raises up to a $15 per hour minimum, and that increased cost on the school district considerably. We didn't get enough state revenue to take care of the local employees as well, and so we've kind of been in that place for about 4 years. And as has already been discussed, one of the reasons we hadn't spent the assigned fund balance is because of carrying vacancies every year. And, you know, reality is we'll still carry some vacancies this next year, but we're hopeful it's less. So you can't continue to do that forever. So we're always having to look critically, and we'll be looking critically at our budget the next cycle as well.
Yeah, because all we're doing is kicking the can down the road, and that's, I don't believe anybody on this board believes in that.
Nor do I.
Okay, I just,
So-
go ahead, David.
Yeah, I would like to make one other point is, okay, so we started this, this fiscal year's budget with forecasting $181 million in revenue, and with a forecasted dipping into our savings, if you want to use that term, for spending fund balance of a couple $1 million. But our budget increased from our revenue increased from $181 million to $190 million. So our revenue increased $9 million over our projection, but we still spent our savings account. No one said, hey, look, we got an extra $9 million, as Ms. Edmonds said. We just started out this budget cycle at 181. We got an extra $9 million. Much of it, I know Dr. Locklear is going to say, well, you know, it was grants and this and that, but not all of it was. But no one came back and said, hey, you know, we could put money back in our savings account. So, look.
Well, we actually are, sir. We actually are. We didn't spend it, so it is going back in the fund balance, which is what Ms. Edmonds is saying here.
$600,000.
We began the year with $4,882,341. We ending the year with $4,995,000. And so we put that assigned fund balance back into savings, but the board in your preliminary budget has approved assigning 2.3, I believe it was, no, 2.1 in your preliminary, and we'll come back with the original budget on exactly how much you'll need to assign to balance the budget once we have all the information from the state. Yeah.
Well, therein lies one of our big problems, and that is that we go first, the county goes second, the state goes third. It should be that the state goes first, the county goes second, and we go third. Because only after the state and the county's already spoken, so thank heaven for that. But only after the state speaks can we really say what our budget is. And I also might look at, when I take a look at 4 years, and would say 30%. That's approximately inflation. I don't know. I don't have the exact figures in front of me. But probably over the past 4 years, we've had about certainly at least 30% inflation, especially in terms of when you look at not just teacher pay, but also costs of things that we have to buy. Everything from things to sweep the floors to books and the like.
So, Mr. Levy, are you inferring that teacher pay went up 30% over the last 4 years?
No, I'm not inferring
Because
that.
that's
I'm not inferring that at all.
right. So the largest expense in our budget, as we all know, 70%, maybe 75% is pay, and pay has not increased anywhere near 30% over the last 4 years.
Plus, of course, we're at the end of the. We end the COVID cycle this October. Am I correct? That's the last of the COVID money. Okay, so that's all fixed. That's all in there as well. Am I correct? Okay, so there is that COVID money. So of course we're not going to have that COVID money next year. But we've done. I think the board has done a marvelous job in making sure that we don't have a big fiscal cliff.
I'm sorry, Mr. Levy, just for clarity, because you said, is the money in there? And that was a bit ambiguous as to whether you were talking about the current year or the future year. I think you meant current year,
Current year,
and yes,
yes.
and that's the decrease from 190 to 166. And my point is, and I specifically said, Mr. Levy, that next year's budget, which is a return to normal, is 166 million, and that 166 million represents about a 30% increase over where we were 4 years ago when you and I got elected. So that normalized out, that took out the spike in COVID spending. When the dust settles, we're spending 25 to 30% more, and that's not going to wages because, our people haven't gotten a 30% increase over 4 years. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Hensley is exactly right. And I really think as a board that we have to pay particular attention what we're doing. We need to be very careful about what we're spending. We have taxpayers in our county that we need to respect, and we owe it to them. That's why we're sitting on this board. We owe it to our taxpayers to make sure that we're not taking money from here to rob Peter to pay Paul. We can't do it.
All right, further.
Just a quick update on Fund 8 from Tina as well, just to make sure the board has the final information from this fiscal year.
So for Fund 8, we had, at the end of June 30th, we had $7,066,449.64. We had year-to-date activity of $1,963,530.74. With a projected fund balance, again, auditors will be here in 2 weeks, so numbers could change just a little bit, but $9,029,980.38 is where we stand. Now, of that $9 million, if you look in blue, that tells you everything in gray is restricted for specific areas. Everything in the blue is not restricted. But just a note, we do have in PRC 304, it did end up, that's our Medicaid cost report, it ended up with $2,220,826.72. We have reoccurring items of $400,000. We had a one-time use for the Chromebooks of $915,318. We have in PRC 305, we have an ending balance of $1,626,250.31. We have reoccurring items of $772,423. And then in the federal impact aid, the ending balance for that is $1,053,958.33. We have reoccurring items of $726,218. In total, we have $2,813,959 in recurring and/or one-time expenses. So the total unrestricted as of June 30th is $7,064,559.43. When you remove the recurring one-time expenses of $2,813,959, we have available unrestricted of $4,250,600.43.
Yeah, Tina, would you explain the homeless college donation? Where does that come from, and do we use it?
So that was donated by someone, I don't know who it was, but someone actually, they gave some money specifically for homeless, a donation for homeless that would go to college. So if anyone turns in, if that's something that I believe the
Our social worker
Social
works with our
workers.
homeless population would, if there was a student, homeless student, who was, for example, was going to San Jose Community College, it's my understanding that would pay for tuition for that student to go. I'm looking at Ms. Metcalf because she would have more on-the-ground knowledge of this than me. But that was, I guess, a generous donation from the community for that.
Okay, and the only criteria is to not have a residence?
To be a McKinney-Vento student, a homeless student, that would be the purpose of why that person donated the money, to help homeless students who are attending college defer some of
Okay.
their costs.
And what if we have nobody? Or what
It's-
if we
it
don't
sits
have
there.
anybody?
It sits there until we have someone
Until
who
we
can
have
take advantage of it.
somebody.
Yes, ma'am. This money can roll over into the next budget year.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Okay, I just did a calculation, 5%, which is exponential over 4 years, would run about 30% from the initial year. That's a mathematical calculation. Just thought I would add that out. Okay. Anything further? Okay.
So just, yeah, I just looked it up. The 2019-2020 budget was $120 million, so our budget increased 33. The next year's budget, which is 5 years later, is 4 years later, 5 years later, is 33% higher than the 19-20 budget. And I don't believe the term is exponential. I believe it's cumulative or something else. If
No,
it's-
actually, it's exponential because if you take 5% of, say, $1, it becomes $1.05, but it then doesn't become $1.10. It becomes $1.05 times 5% of $1.05 the following year. It's $1 of $1 about 12, and then the fourth year, so it's exponential actually. Any rate, anything further? I'm stretching the knowledge of my math. Is there a math instructor around? Okay, let's go ahead to our next item, which is an out-of-state field trip. Dr.
Yes, sir.
Lockley.
Just a note that the fourth quarter final amended budget resolution does come with my recommendation for approval in a few hours at your budget meeting. We do have one out-of-state field trip that Mrs. Metcalf will be bringing to the board for Pinecrest High School. I'll turn it right over to Mrs. Metcalf to share this field trip opportunity for our students.
Good afternoon. Pinecrest High School volleyball team would like to travel to Rock Hill, South Carolina, August 16th and 17th to participate in a tournament.
Okay. I don't know about the South Carolina, but I'll go along with it. Yeah. Couldn't be in Georgia or anything like that. No, has to be South Carolina.
No, that's a lot farther.
Is it? Okay, any questions on this? Okay, that sounds to be fine.
Comes with my recommendation this afternoon.
Yes, and we're gonna go ahead and, we'll deal with that, this afternoon. Yes,
Was that a girls' team? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Volleyball is a female sport, North Carolina. Yep.
all right, so, now let's look at, our agenda. We only have actually 2 items.
Have one more item for action, sir.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
Grow more teachers articulation. Dr. Locklear.
Yes, sir. I'm excited to share this with the board. I shared a little information last week with the board about this opportunity that we have to partner with Sandhills Community College and University of North Carolina at Pembroke. Over the last few months, we have been working with the team members from Sandhills Community College and the University of North Carolina at Pembroke on a Grow Our Own Moore County Teachers program. This resulted in the development of a Grow More Teachers Scholarship that will be supported by Sandhills Community College Endowment Fund. And we're very grateful for Sandhills for being willing to look at that through their endowment fund to support such a program. It will be at no cost to Moore County schools. This scholarship will offer the opportunity for Moore County schools graduates who are interested in teaching to receive their degrees at almost no cost from Sandhills Community College and the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. A recipient of this scholarship would commit as part of them receiving the scholarship to return to Moore County schools to teach for 4 years. Kind of like the North Carolina Teacher Fellows program, but our own scholarship program to develop that here in Moore County. Attached to this executive summary is an articulation agreement between the three institutions. It's been developed and will be signed formally later this week to announce the scholarship. This agreement has been reviewed by our council and comes with my recommendation for approval. And again, that formal announcement and signing event is going to take place this Wednesday at Sandhills Community College pending your approval of the articulation agreement. Certainly comes with my recommendation for approval, and I'm just really excited that we are developing this program, a Grow Your Own program for our students graduating from Moore County schools. For example, we do have a teacher cadet program, which is a class that Northmore High School offers. We're looking to see how we can bring that back at Pinecrest and Union Pines. And we have students who are genuinely interested in becoming teachers, and this is an opportunity for them to almost get a no-cost degree and to come back home and teach in Moore County schools. So I'm very grateful for the partnership we're developing with Sandhills Community College and UNCP. I think there's other opportunities with these two institutions that we can leverage on behalf of our students. For a quick look at the articulation agreement, Charlie, if you'll pull that up, just so you'll know what, if you haven't taken a look at it. Again, it's a pretty straightforward, simple agreement between University of North Carolina at Pembroke and Sandhills Community College. You can see it's the Grow More Teacher Scholarship Articulation Agreement. Just kind of highlight some key pieces of this. It talks about the different associate's degree the students would need to have coming out of Sandhills to go into UNCP. It does talk about the terms and elements that any of the parties, including Moore County Schools, can back out of this agreement if it isn't beneficial to our institution. It talks about the requirements of the student that's matriculate through Sandhills and the UNCP, and how they'll be working with the College of Education at UNCP. Then it will be signed as representatives from each institution by myself, Dr. Sandy Stewart, president of Sandhills Community College, and Dr. Robin Cummins, who's the president of the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. And again, currently that's planned to be on Wednesday, again, pending your approval of this articulation agreement. So again, just really excited and appreciative of Sandhills' willingness to support this and get this off the ground through their endowment group, endowment fund. So again, I'm excited to share this with the board, and it does come with my recommendations. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Dr. Locklear, first of all, cost. Any cost to us?
Again, it's no cost to Moore County
Okay,
schools.
that's what I want to know.
What we will be committed to doing is, advertising this scholarship opportunity with our students, and of course, encouraging our students to take advantage of it. Also, what we're already working on, and we continue to work on, because this is a great vehicle for it, is encouraging the development of our teacher cadet programs at each of our high schools. So this gives us a great vehicle to continue to encourage that. But as far as any cost to the school district, no, sir.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay, yes, sir.
Question, did we give any consideration to prioritizing to fill our chronically short disciplines?
We discussed that, Dr. Patterson and myself and Ms. Sinan, who've been our team members working on this. And really, we did not go that route yet, just because of the general need for great teachers in general, across all subject areas and grade levels. You're right, we have some acute needs in math and exceptional children, but we did not want to narrow it and not, kind of discourage folks versus encouraging. at this time, but it's a great point.
If this takes off, maybe
Yes.
down the road, we can take a look at this.
Yes, sir, and it's gonna start small, and maybe as it grows and we can support, we can maybe, earmark certain scholarships for those positions. Great idea. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Ms.
Uh,
Bruno?
Yeah, my question was the same as Mr. Benway's, because I didn't see special needs on there. So that was my question. But I think this is absolutely wonderful.
Thank you,
Very
ma'am.
proud of it.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate the team's work on it.
All right.
I missed it, but when does it kick in?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
We would sign the agreement, on your behalf, I'd sign the agreement on Wednesday, if approved, and it would be the first cohort of students, the first scholarship recipient would be starting their time at Sand Hills the fall of 25-26. Yeah.
Mr. Hensley?
Yeah. Do you know if the University of Pembroke or any other schools are doing similar things with other school districts?
I think there are universities, there's certainly community colleges who are doing it. There are some community colleges that are doing, like Lee County has something similar, Carteret County has something with the community college through their Sand Hills Promise type program. But I'm not aware of many who have the same articulation through their regional public university. And so that may be something that's a little unique with ours, that some others don't have, so.
Yeah, it's a great program. I mean, what's the downside? There is none. It's a great opportunity. I was just wondering how widespread it is. The Sand Hills Promise, I thought that was unique to Sand Hills Community College, but then as I travel around, I think
Right.
almost all community colleges have something similar to our Sand Hills Promise.
Many have something similar, but like I said, I'm not sure how many take it that next step to kind of articulating it through the university.
Right, thank you.
Okay, I have a
Further-
question,
yes.
Bob.
Mhm,
Tim, are there limits to how many people you could put in this program?
Initially, the community college would like to start small so they can build that endowment scholarship for this.
Okay,
So it could be 1 to 2 in that first group, but when we've got a full 4 cohorts of students, we were working towards 12 students. So you'd
Okay.
have 3 in each year, so you'd have 3 graduating continuously
okay,
and coming into the workforce. And my hope, we might even grow up beyond that at some point.
okay. The other question I have is the college has a huge endowment fund. Why don't we?
It's a great question. I'd love to see at some point if we could work collaboratively with our Moore County Public Education Fund and endowment, and see how we might fund, have some additional donations to that fund and do some things unique there.
I
But,
think that this is really a good thing because the college they have tons of money.
we have an incredible community that wants to
Yes,
give
we
and wants
do,
to
and we're
support
not
this.
taking advantage of it. So, I'd like to put this on the sometime, talk about it.
Well, that's a separate entity. That's not us, but that's a separate entity, but it's an entity that we want to partner with and have in the past, and we want to continue. And I think there's
Well, why
great
can't we have
possibility.
our own? Why do we have to partner?
Well, we could talk more about that,
Okay.
but the Moore County Public Education Fund is specifically set up to support public education in Moore County. It has been, very supportive of that for many, many years, mostly through grants, a lot of grants to support things in the classroom and things of that nature. It's never been an endowment fund that's raised millions and millions and millions of dollars. But many times when you have an entity like that, you really need someone who's full-time working it.
Working
And that's
on it,
kind of a
sure.
volunteer-driven organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very grateful for what they've done for Moore County schools. I think there's potential to do even more, but down the road, if we really wanted to put the horsepower in it, I think you would need someone whose job is to work on behalf of that foundation.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment and a question. Whenever I would attend the recruitment retention meetings that we've had, this seemed to be a simple solution to a big problem, is to grow our own. And I'm so excited to have this come in. How does it tie into, how can we tie it into the CTE program? Or is that something that's being talked about and developed?
There is a CT option for something that's like the teacher cadet. We tried that a few years back. It requires a student to make a commitment for 2 classes back to back, right? So it takes half of their course load in a semester. Right. it's a big commitment for the students, and you know, students have a lot of choices, and the difference between that and the teacher cadet program is the teacher cadet program can be offered and taught by any teacher, and you want a teacher who's fired up about teaching, and the kids really relate to and connect to, and we have that at Northmore High School, and so that's just one class in a semester versus two. So we're finding that the teacher cadet option may very well be the most viable option to kind of build that up in our schools.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Further? Okay, very good. So let's take a look at our agenda for the business meeting, which will immediately follow this meeting. Let me know if everything is correct. So on sub A, the amended budget, is that the consent agenda? Consent? No. Okay. So that's scheduled for a vote. Out-of-state field trips, consent? And the matter which we just took care of, which is the articulation agreement, is that consent? Okay. All right. So we have one matter for a vote and an argument. Okay. So next, Dr. Locklear, we have some reports and information.
Yes, sir. We have our quarterly academic update, and we have Dr. Rachel Burse, our Assistant Director of Curriculum Instruction, with us, with Dr. Metcalf, to give a brief update around our summer professional development opportunities for our teachers and staff, and we're greatly appreciative of our, we've always talked about the summer as a time for our teachers as leaders in our district to help us provide resources and updates on our curricular documents for all of our teachers, and so we're grateful for that, but it's also a time to offer some great professional learning opportunities. So I turn it right over to Dr. Metcalf and Dr. Burse.
I will turn it right over to Dr. Burris. Very busy time for us this summer.
Yes, we are so excited to share some information about professional development for this summer with our teachers and some of the work that they're doing. So every summer we offer opportunities for our teachers to participate in, and a lot of times people think teachers take their summers off. Well, I'm here to tell you that they do not. They are constantly working to improve their practice, to improve their content knowledge, so we're going to share some of the things that they are doing and some of the things that the district is supporting as well. So our biggest lift this summer has been K-12 science. So we have new science standards from the state, so that required us to modify pretty much all of our curriculum documents. So we had about 25 teachers participate across the county, and they have worked on pacing new curriculum documents for science at K-12. They have created hands-on experiments with this. They have created assessments at grades 3 through 8 in high school biology. And one of the things we're really excited about is they've also embedded reading activities and writing activities aligned to the science standards, because we know students learn better when they can write about what they are learning about. So that's been a purposeful action with these documents. And then they've also brought in higher level of rigor, because these standards are at a higher level of rigor than the prior ones. They're asking for more analysis, greater understanding, so we've made sure that the activities are aligned to those levels for K-12 science. And then at K-5 math, we have Eureka Math pilot schools across the district, and so to make sure that the materials are aligned to the scope and sequence of Eureka Math, along with the North Carolina standards, we've had teachers create curriculum documents that will align to our North Carolina and mesh very well with Eureka Math. And so those lessons are going to be linked on our curriculum website. And then we are also offering Foundations of Math training across June and July at our schools that teachers have opted to participate in as well. And Foundations of Math really offers excellent strategies for teachers to use for students to better understand mathematical concepts. I always like to look at it and think about it like maybe I don't learn math a certain way, but you might learn math different from me. It'll teach you all those different ways to try to have students be able to understand math on a conceptual level. So it's excellent training. I wish that I'd had math teachers that had that training. I probably would have been a much better math student, but we're really excited about it. And then for 6-12 math, very similar to K-5, we do have some Eureka work going on at 6-8. We had about 4 teachers participate with that, and they vetted and condensed the resources to align to Eureka. And then for 9-12, we had a math teacher. We only had one, But we had one Math 1 teacher who created some more detailed assignments and tasks aligned to the standard. Also really looked at increasing rigor to try to amp up what we're doing in our Math 1 classes at the high school. And then we are having a summer professional development at the end of July to support Eureka Math at our middle schools. And then for K-5 ELA, last year was our big lift for K-5 reading. So this year has been more of like a supportive piece. We've added some additional support pieces in, but we haven't really changed a lot because we're still trying to grow our phonics program at K-3 and our magnetic reading program at 3-5. So what we did do is we've kind of changed up our second grade reading pacing guide and added in more comprehension to align with phonics, and that was a request from our second grade teachers. So they wanted to see more opportunities for more comprehension reading and not just the learning how to read, but more the language comprehension when we think about science of reading. And then we've also are creating some more comprehension questions at grades 3-5 to support magnetic reading that go into a really much deeper level of rigor to support that amped up. And then we have added tier 2 and tier 3 interventions aligned to the science of reading for students who might be struggling with reading at the K-5. And then we're having an amplified train the trainer session at the end of July where we're going to be training some of our own so that they can lead training for new hires to the district for M-class, which is how we do our assessment at K-3 for reading. And then 612 ELA, there are Holocaust study units that have been created and are being added to the 612 ELA curriculum, and that is a requirement of the Giselle Abramson Education Act, where we are required to include units about the Holocaust in grades 6 through 12. So she has worked very diligently to make sure that those are aligned, and they provide spiral opportunities. And the big takeaway is she didn't want to have everything just repeat itself every grade level. She wanted it to be new experiences with the content. So that has been a huge undertaking, but she's done an excellent job, and those will be ready to go for the fall. All right, so we have some upcoming professional development. So that's just June and early July. So what we have for August is we have our leadership conference with the Moore County Schools leadership, which will be the first week of August, August 6th through the 8th. So that's our principals, assistant principals, facilitators, district level staff. So it's a huge opportunity for us to grow. And then we have new teacher induction, which will be August 13th through 15th. We're very excited about that to bring in some of our new employees and beginning teachers and support them in their journey. And then we still have letters, which is science of reading. We start a brand new cohort for that on August 20th with Unit 1, and then continuing the other two cohorts with Unit 5 and Unit 7. And then we have our More Learning Conference on August 20th, which is a conference teachers can sign up for different sessions of things that they're interested in to grow themselves. And then we are going full district-wide at 95% core phonics at grades K-3, which we piloted pretty much in most places last year, but the principals and the teachers have opted to go in for full district. So those teachers who were not trained on it at their grade level last year will participate in that training on August 20th. And then we have the Eureka Math PD and then the Amplify M-Class training to round out our summer and the beginning of the school year.
Thank you, Rachel. We're certainly very proud of their work with our teachers and staff, and very fortunate to have the type of teacher leaders we have in our district. So appreciate you, Rachel, and we look forward to these opportunities.
Thank you, sir.
Questions from the board?
I just have a comment and maybe a question. My comment is this, you started off by saying that teachers don't take the summer off. Well, some teachers do. I mean, that, teachers are
Right.
contracted for X number of days per year. And a subset of our teachers volunteer to do this work over the summer for additional pay.
Correct. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
yeah, I just wanted
Yes.
to clear up any misperception that, and we're thankful that they do this. This is all very worthwhile, but the fact is that teachers volunteer. No one's forced to do this. It's on a voluntary basis. They lend their expertise and experience, and then in exchange for that, they get extra pay.
Correct.
Probably not enough, that's a different discussion, but
That
they
is a
do get
correct
that extra.
statement. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I have two
Right, thank you.
questions.
Yes.
Rachel, the 95% core phonics training, what is that?
So that is, remember last year we brought in 95% phonics, which was aligned to the science of reading for K-3. And
Right.
most of our schools did it. So that is training for those teachers or grade level, let's say at, I'm just pulling this out of my head, West End Elementary, their second grade didn't do it last year.
Oh,
So
okay.
this training is to get their second grade trained on it.
Okay.
So it wasn't full district, and we are going full district this year.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask you was about the intervention for
Tier 2 and Tier 3?
yes.
Right, so that is a document that we created over the course of this last school year that we are now linking to our curriculum documents. And basically what it says is if you have a student at first grade, who is struggling with phonics, these are things you might want to try if to intervene to help that student to be able to read better, or if they're struggling with fluency or comprehension. So essentially it's a one-stop kind of shop, for lack of a better phrase, where teachers can go and they say, okay, I know if I do this, it's aligned to what I'm doing in the classroom, but at a higher, more in-depth level to help my struggling reader.
Okay, so are these going to be groups of children that you're going to take out?
It could be. I mean, it
Okay.
could be. It could be depending on what they need. I mean, I could do it in my classroom with a group of 3 students that just need work on that.
Okay.
Or maybe they're getting some extra time outside of class,
Okay.
outside of the actual reading block. It just really depends, but it could be either way.
Okay, that's terrific. And the other one, is there literature that's coming with the Holocaust teaching?
Right. So it is from the North Carolina Holocaust Society. It is from there. So she pulled things from that. So books like Night was one of them for high school. That
Okay.
has always been part of our curriculum, but they
Okay.
had different resources to go along with it. There are some other ones that I can't really remember off the top of my head, but she basically pulled it from that North Carolina site linked with DPI to try to integrate it with what we already have, but to make sure that it's different at each year so that students aren't getting the same exact
Okay.
piece of study.
So they're novels, correct? Is
Some
that
will
what
be.
you're?
Some will be. Yes. Some of them are. Some of them are not. They might be articles. They might be pieces of text. Honestly, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know there are some novel studies or autobiographies that are included.
Okay. Because I would love to see those.
Mr. Schwartz, yes. Mr. Schwartz?
If I may, I wrote the legislation, the Giselle Abrams Holocaust Education Act.
Yeah, I'll see
Um,
that.
And I'm the
Okay.
vice chairman of the North Carolina Council on the
Okay.
Holocaust. And the council has spent about a year and a half now working with DPI and to a lesser extent the North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching to develop the Holocaust education materials in conjunction with the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum
Okay.
in D.C. and their experts there. The materials are all online at the DPI website, and they are deep and robust. And one of the experts at the museum has been touting our legislation and the materials that have been developed as the new gold standard for other states to emulate. But it's not just, is there a novel here or is there, a book there or an article? It is, you can go very, very, very deep into this for lots of different places in the curriculum, grades 7 through 12, and there are electives being developed now as well, and there's also extensive professional development being provided for teachers across the state.
Well, thank you so much. So I can, if I want to read this, could go on the DPI?
You can
And
go on the
everything will be there.
It's on the DPI website. It's
Yeah.
very, very deep.
Okay. I think this is extremely important because people do not understand, and what's on our college campuses today is just awful. And I just want to say kudos to everybody for doing this. I think this is absolutely wonderful.
May I add something real quick to
Yes,
that?
please.
I have some good friends in Texas who participate in this program down on their end. They've got a similar legislation. And what they do is they go out to the schools and deliver a presentation on their parents' experiences, certified experiences during the Holocaust. Very, very effective. So this is quite a program. I think I'm glad we embrace it.
The Holocaust Council and NCAT have both been doing this for a long time. But now we've got a curriculum requirement as part of this legislation, and as part of the legislation, there was funding set aside to develop the curriculum. So it's a very deep, robust curriculum. I would encourage any of you, if you're interested, to look at it. It's if you go to the DPI website or just Google North Carolina Council on the Holocaust, you'll get there quickly.
Okay, North Carolina Council. Yes, would you be interested in coming to speak to our classes?
I would, but I could get you even better people to come speak
Oh,
on this.
And not charge us for it.
So, if I could, Mr. Lee.
Yes, go ahead.
So, this class on the Holocaust is in response, as we've learned, as you presented, as we've learned by a bill passed by the General Assembly, which, based upon Mr. Schwartz's statement, appears to be part of a nationwide movement. I hope it's more inclusive than just the Holocaust, because as horrible as that was, the fact is that Chairman Mao, in his Great Leap Forward, killed at least 45 million Chinese people in a genocide. There's the Armenian genocide. Stalin killed far more people than Hitler ever thought about killing. I mean, my God, Stalin and the collectivization of farms killed starved to death 2 to 3 million Ukrainians. So, unfortunately, the Holocaust is just one in a line of horrible. I mean, you got the Khmer Rouge, you got the Rwanda genocide. So, I am hoping, although the mandate is focused on the Holocaust, that our curriculum committee opens it up a little bit more, because there are certainly, unfortunately, many, many, many more examples of genocides on behalf of governments against people.
The
That's all I
legislation
have. Thank you.
includes that.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Further questions?
So we just need to make sure we do the intent of the legislation. We don't just make it Holocaust because it was presented up here as, a
And
Holocaust.
it's not a separate, there's a separate elective being developed, statewide elective being developed for this, but what this is to incorporate it in the existing curriculum in grades 7 through 12.
All right.
okay. I need that address again, North Carolina Council
North Carolina Council on the Holocaust.
on the Holocaust. Thank you.
Further? Okay. If not, thank you very, very much. Very enlightening. Okay, the end of the year student discipline update.
Yes, sir, Mr. Levy, as we, Ms. Metcalf and Ms. Sinan and the chief have come previously. Each quarter, we give a discipline update. This is the end of year discipline update. Wanted to make sure we had all the data, which is why we didn't do that in June. We brought it to the July meeting, but we appreciate Ms. Metcalf and the job she does with us. And so I'll turn it right over to Ms. Sinan and Ms. Metcalf and Chief Hardy.
Yes. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll turn it over to Ms. Metcalf and Chief Hardy to go through the data.
Good afternoon. So, the number of discipline referrals continued to rise throughout the 23-24 school year, as did the assignment of in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. The assignment of bus suspension did decrease slightly. As with the first semester data, there was an overall increase in the percentage of ISS assignments made. There was a decrease in the percentage of OSS assignments and a slight decrease in the percentage of bus suspensions. Again, this is likely due to the increasing use of ISS in elementary schools as a consequence, and the use of ISS to teach conflict resolution and emotional regulation skills in the middle schools. For actions that warrant separation from your peers but do not warrant removal from school and from instruction. For police consequences, as you can see, we've had an increase in the number of students referred to the Moore County Schools Police Second Chance Program and the county's teen court and juvenile justice programs. Just as a reminder, these consequences are separate from our school consequences. They involve a violation of law.
I have a quick question, if
Sure.
I may, on the last slide.
This one?
Is each number, that one, of the 92, could of the 92 referrals to the Department of Juvenile Justice also been to teen court or second chance, or are these each individual numbers? Did I word that correctly? I'm
So
sorry.
some of those 92 will have been through second chance and teen court. Some will not have because it's such a violation that they would go
It goes
straight
straight
to
to
a
there.
referral.
Okay.
Remember that that's 92 that we have referred, not the number that have been accepted
Mm-hmm.
by the Department of Juvenile Justice or by teen court.
Thank you.
So that leads to my question, if I could, Mr. Chair. So, you know, you mentioned, Tracy, that these are the number of cases that we referred, not necessarily the ones that were accepted. I'm kind of, you know, a question that I had coming into this is we never hear the disposition of these cases. You know, we hear, oh, we referred it to teen court, and, you know, I don't know, I've never heard the disposition of any single case that's referred to teen court or, more importantly, the juvenile justice. So right here, just in the last year, we've had 92 students and zero feedback on they were all rejected or they were accepted or here were the, so can we get the results of these referrals? I mean, obviously, I guess it wouldn't be public, but
So we did at the semester give you the percentages that were accepted for DJJ and teen court in that presentation. I don't know if we have the percentages done yet but we can give those to you as soon as those are done.
okay. And what about the adjudication, i.e., you know, for lack of a better term, the sentences that were passed down?
That's not part of we don't get that information.
It's all confidential.
Correct.
It's even,
Look, just to let you know, you can go to teen court, and I've been there, and they do allow us on a confidential basis to go in and observe.
I'm
So-
talking specifically.
No,
Mr. Peavy, about
I
the
understand. I
juvenile
thought I would
justice. So
just
the-
let you know.
So the district, just to be clear, the district gets no feedback on the adjudication of the cases.
No, sir, I do not get any feedback on the adjudication of the cases. The officer, if they're present during the trial or the hearing, they would have had data for that. However, we don't track that data.
Can we get that data? We're just not asking, or is not possible to get it?
I will reach out to my Department of Juvenile Justice contact and see if that data is available. I'm inclined to think that because it's dealing with an individual child, that data would be kept amongst whatever court hearing was there. Now, I can get probably an outcome based on numbers.
Right.
But that's about it.
It would be nice to get feedback. I mean, are we sending too many there and it's not, you know, they're just taking no action, or are they taking, you know, it would be nice feedback to know the results of your team's effort.
I'll look into that, sir.
Thank you.
Charlie, can you?
Go
Thank you.
go ahead.
Yes, he's just gonna put up
Well,
the
unless
chart.
there are other questions, so
Oh.
that's fine. Okay, if not, go right ahead.
All right. In terms of our discipline offenses, the pattern from this first semester remains. There's a slight increase in the top 3 offenses. Those remain the same: aggressive behavior, inappropriate behavior, and disruptive behavior. As you know, these traditionally make up the largest percentage of behavioral referrals due to the necessity of admin intervention in the case of severe or pervasive aggressive behavior, and the broadness of the inappropriate and disruptive behavior categories. The others are very specific. This one's a little small. I apologize for that. I shared this chart for the first time in March using our semester 1 data to give you a more detailed view of our most common discipline offenses, and I wanted to update it for the end of year. The top 3 offenses of aggressive behavior, inappropriate behavior, and disruptive behavior represent 7% or less of the total student population of Moore County schools. This is an increase from the first semester, and while we traditionally have an increase in disciplinary referrals in the second semester, we are looking at these last 3 years of data to see if that has been a pattern and determine how we can address it at the school and the district level. If you look at specially identified students, in keeping with the semester 1 data, the majority of students referred for discipline were not identified as EC, but exceptional children population does remain overrepresented in discipline. There's been a 2% decrease in aggressive behavior from semester 1 to the end of year. 31% of EC students had referrals compared to an overall EC population of 14% for the district. We believe that some of the decrease may be due to the success of interventions such as behavior plans, as well as placing students in more supportive environments. The next section is grade span. Although the percentage of students involved in inappropriate and disruptive behavior remained relatively constant, the aggressive behavior data was actually quite surprising to us. High school remained constant. There was just an increase of 1% from the semester, but there was a 14% decrease in the elementary level and a 12% increase at the middle school level. Since we've not analyzed this specific data in the past, we're looking at the past data to determine if there's been a pattern, as well as analyzing actions taken by schools and the district at the semester that may have impacted those outcomes. With regard to bus fights, they represent less than 1% of the student population. There was a significant decrease at the elementary level by about 10%, increase of 5% and 4% at the middle and high schools respectively. We've added that category to our analysis of aggressive behavior just to look for trends there.
So looking at the gender percentage of the offenses, I couldn't help but notice that I assume males are roughly 50% of our population. I could not help but notice that males are overrepresented on these aggressive behavior, inappropriate behavior, and disruptive behavior. What do you attribute that to, that males are overrepresented?
There are a lot of factors in that. One of the ones that we've focused on more recently is our choice in dealing with students that express aggressive behavior, male versus female. So our female students are much more likely to get sent to a counselor, where our male students are much more likely to get sent to an administrator for the same aggressive behavior. So we're looking at why is that? What is it in our belief systems or how we approach discipline that would lead to that?
Couldn't be human nature?
I suppose it could be human nature, but I really believe that if we can more objectively look at what we are defining as aggressive behavior and how we then deal with it, that we would be able to even those out.
Yeah, let me say this, and this is really just an editorial comment. I've heard certain people in certain groups say, this group doesn't perform because the teachers don't look like them, and therefore, because the teachers don't look like them, how could a student possibly respect, or learn anything to include? I'm not saying this. This is what I hear. How can a teacher learn academically or behavior from a teacher that doesn't look like them? And I would guess that we probably have less than 10% male teachers in Moore County schools. That's just a guess, but 50% of our males. And, if I use that same line of thinking that, gosh, boys just can't learn from, teachers don't look like them, I think that's ridiculous and I reject it. That this is nothing, that has nothing to do with you said. I just say the most glaring error, for the people who say people can't learn from someone who doesn't look like them, the most glaring discrepancy of that in all of education is the lack of male teachers versus female teachers. And that's just, how people choose to go into that. And I'm not advocating that we have 50%, male teachers, but, if you follow the same line of thinking that people who say people can't learn from people who don't look like them, that would be the natural result, and that's just craziness. So anyway, thank you.
Okay. Further questions along those lines? You have some further stuff? Yeah.
So yes, so the percent of students with repeat offenses, just remember that effective discipline must include appropriate consequences and intervention and instruction to change behavior. As a district, we are continually analyzing the effectiveness of our tiered intervention in changing student behavior for the future. As I talked about in semester 1, tier 1 is our core behavior instruction and includes setting expectations and consequences for all students, as well as reteaching those expectations at the classroom level for minor infractions. Tier 2 is supplemental instruction for students who continue to exhibit behavior that does not meet those expectations in order to learn strategies to target those undesired behaviors. And Tier 3 is intensive teaching and support through individualized student plans based on those specific needs. So the majority of students remained responsive to core and supplemental instruction. That would be less than 5 referrals for the same behavior. 95% of students were successful for aggressive behavior. 94% for inappropriate behavior, that is a decrease of 6%, 95% for disruptive behavior. We have 85% for bus fighting, which is a decrease again, or an increase, but it was based on 2 bus fights that involved 4 students, quite honestly. We expected to see some increases due to the increased number of referrals and the students receiving them in the second semester, but we really are looking closely into the consequences, the intervention and the instruction for inappropriate behavior in bus fights, where we observe those decreases in the effectiveness of core and supplemental instruction during that second semester.
Let me ask you about these things about bus fights. There was a program where the bus drivers, where a child was issued a disciplinary citation, for lack of a better term, okay? And the bus driver got a copy of that and then was later informed as to what happened to the child. Is that still going on?
Yes, and that's so that the bus driver can be part of the interventions. So if that intervention involved changing a seat, or that intervention involved the bus driver greeting the student when they got on the bus, anything like that, yes.
But that information, the bus driver still gets that copy of the ticket or whatever it is.
Correct. There.
And then is informed later on what's going on.
Yes.
That seems to be important to the bus driver.
Yes.
And so, okay, thank you.
Sure. Despite the increase in students with repeated offenses, they still represent less than 40 of the 13,295 Moore County School students. So we're proud of that. And again, as Mr. Hensley referred to, male students are overrepresented as a category, as are Black students, although the percentage of Black students referred has decreased in all offenses. We think that part of this is the types of interventions and instructions the schools are using to support students in developing coping skills. And maybe that's a point to Mr. Hensley's point. Maybe sometimes if you see a person, if you're a male and you see a male exhibiting coping skills in those situations, maybe that intervention does work a little bit better. All right, this is our specific discipline data that was requested by the board, and that's aggressive behavior. We continued our trends from the first semester with a significant increase in referrals overall. We were up by about 430, largely due to the increase in elementary schools, which represented 365 of those increases. And then middle school and high school also saw increases in that second semester. 45% of our schools saw an increase of 10 or more referrals from 22-23, and 23% of schools saw a decrease of 10 or more referrals from 22-23. So we continue to analyze the trends to determine how the specific elements of school-based plans, individualized student plans, and the use of the discipline matrix have impacted those outcomes. All right, Charlie, you can go back. Second category is assault. So the semester trend again continues. We have had a decrease at middle school and high school and a slight increase at elementary school, specifically McDeeds Creek Elementary and West Pine Elementary. In both cases, those numbers are due to a specific group of students who have individualized plans to meet those needs. All right, Charlie. And the third category is fighting. Similar again to semester one, the high school maintained their semester decrease. Middle school continued to decrease. Elementary school continued to increase. We had about 7 more fighting incidents in 23-24 than we did in 22-23, with a corresponding increase in ISS and OSS. We'll continue to analyze that data to inform school and district practices for next year. Thank you, Charlie. All right, the Moore County Schools Discipline Matrix, as you know, we spent the year piloting those in our areas, elementary, middle school, and then finally the high schools. So we are updating that disciplinary matrix based on the changes from the pilot schools, and then that will be distributed for implementation in 24-25.
Thank you, Ms. Metcalf.
You're welcome.
Board members, any other questions?
Yes.
Tracy, you said that we have the same students causing all this disruption at Cranes Creek and West Pine. Did I get that
No,
right?
at Deeds Creek Elementary and West Pine Elementary, there's a smaller group of students who are being referred for that group of offenses, and so.
Okay, but that's the small group that is causing all the disruption
No, not all the disruptions, but just in that category.
of. what the category?
That was the assault category.
That was the assault.
Mhm.
Okay, so if this is being done over and over again, why are we keeping them there?
So these are elementary school students, so we do have the responsibility to educate all of our students, and we are taking measures to address that behavior and to teach them different ways.
Okay, give me an example of what would be in their individual plan.
So we have specialized instruction for coping skills, and then they go on a behavior plan where they exhibit those. That's a process of reward as well. We work with their parents, and if they are involved in therapy or other outside organizations, we partner with them to determine what strategies to use in terms of discipline. We look for what we call it their antecedents behavior is. So we're looking for what are the triggers that may cause that type of behavior, and so that we can avoid the triggers, or we can say warn the child. So for some children, a change in setting or a change in routine is very, very difficult for them to do. And so we know that if we can prompt them, if we give them those changes in advance, that it's less likely to cause that kind of response. And so those are a lot of things around that we do.
Okay. Are you seeing with the individualized plan, are you seeing results?
We are.
You are?
We are.
From the beginning of the year to the end of
Yes.
the year? Okay. All right, that's all.
Sure.
Thank you.
Further questions, members of the board? Yes, sir.
Just really a capstone question. You started off by saying that the discipline statistics are up, generally speaking. I mean, some were down, but the majority, especially the big ones, were up. My anticipation was, I mean, we've been focusing on enforcing discipline, gosh, for almost 2 years now. You know, this board, you know, obviously the board before did whatever they did or we did. But anyway, I would have expected, you know, discipline things to kind of, you know, increase as, you know, it's being increasingly enforced and then taper off. That was my expectations as people kind of got the memo, but they're continuing to increase. What's your assessment of that?
So our numbers are increasing, but the percentages are increasing, but slightly. I think, honestly, a lot of this is how kids are processing what they see and how to react to situations. I look at a lot of what we see around us, and there's a lot of social media. There's a lot of examples for students as to how you cope with situations that are not passive. So I think that's a big piece of it for us.
I'm glad, I mean, personally, I'm glad that Moore County Schools has made a commitment to stay in front of it. I'm just surprised to see the numbers. I mean, it's a societal problem, you know, there's zero doubt about that. Anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions, members of the board? Let me ask you one specific one. There seems to be an idea of not suspending students for something called willful defiance. And that's a new California law. And I'm hoping that that doesn't creep into our disciplinary matrix, although I have the feeling that those types of ideas are coming from West Coast to East Coast. Are you finding any pressure along those lines to do less than an adequate job for something called willful defiance?
No, and I'm not sure how they're defining willful defiance.
Neither
it may
am I.
be
It just
similar
happens to be a new law which was recently signed by the governor of California, which alarmed me and concerned me because we need to give our teachers the ability to suspend or do whatever is necessary to make sure that there's discipline in the classroom. And I'm just very concerned that those kinds of ideas have a way of coming from west to east.
Well, I would say this superintendent and this board, I know expects our students to do what is asked of them. And when we're asking them to do something that's the right thing and we're asking them in a respectful way, we expect them to do what we ask them to do. And I certainly don't expect our state legislature to pass such a law. So I would say there's no concern in Moore County schools. We have high expectations for how we want our students to behave. When they reach those expectations, which almost all of them do, which we're very proud of that, almost all of them do, then we're able to have a more enjoyable, full experience in school, which we're proud of as well, which we saw exhibited when those students crossed that stage earlier this month or last month. We see the results of that type of living up to those expectations. So
We appreciate, I think as a board, we appreciate that attitude. We appreciate the ethos that you've given us and our staff has given us throughout the school system. So we do appreciate that. Thank you. Okay.
thank you, folks.
Further. Okay. Any particular board committees want to inject anything? They have not. We've got a couple of committee meetings which are scheduled for, I believe,
Yes, sir.
in August. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. We have a board policy committee scheduled for July 30th at 9 a.m. and a construction committee meeting on August 1st at 10:30 a.m.
Okay, and well, I assume the meeting on the budget will happen after the legislature gives us our budget.
Yes, sir. Once we have all the information from the state, we may very well ask for a budget committee to have a budget committee meeting. Depending on the timing, we may just bring that update to the committee of the whole, as it's called, the entire board, based on the timing of how everything pans out.
Okay, sounds good. All right, anything further on that, Lord? Okay. If not, let me see here. I think, you want to take a break? Yes, we do.
Can I ask for councils, so throwing right into the closed session and into the business meeting, can we recess and then come back and do that? Is that the best way to do it, or?
Okay, I think that sounds like the better idea. Am I correct? Okay, so is there a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the item 4A on the agenda? So moved. Okay. Is there a second? There is a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? If not, we'll stand in recess as on this on this meeting, and we'll go into closed session. There'll be a business meeting immediately followed closed session. What's the estimate of time on that, Dr. Locklear?
My estimate would be 60 to 90 minutes would be the estimate of that. We normally pace out no longer than 90 minutes, but I think today it may be closer to 60.
Okay, all right. And so the business meeting will transpire just right after that closed session. Okay, so we stand in recess. once again calling the Moore County Board of Education into session. We're going to go ahead and secure from recess. Do I have a motion to end our closed session and move into open session? Okay, there's such a motion. Do I have a second? Second by the vice chair. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. By the way, Stacy Caldwell, just so everybody knows, Stacy Caldwell is on the telephone, so she is present. Okay, so at, just one second. Okay, so at this point in time, let's go ahead with the Pledge of Allegiance, calling on, do we approve the agenda first? Okay, all right. So stand down for just a second. Okay. Do I have we're going to, do I have a motion to change the proposed agenda to add an item B, which is the superintendent's extension of his contract? Amendment to superintendent's contract. Okay. All right. And so do I have such a motion? Okay. There's a motion? All second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. So now let's go forward with the Pledge of Allegiance. My apologize. Okay. I'll go along with that.
Moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Now.
Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much.
You'll please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
Good
On
afternoon,
Inspiration.
Dr. Locklear, Chair Levy, and the members of the Board of Education. I began my educational journey as an American history teacher, so I believe it is fitting that we begin this first week of July by celebrating the founding of the American Republic. As a teacher, one of my favorite activities was to have students use primary and secondary sources to identify the ideals that were part of the founding of the American Republic, and then to rank their importance and create a well-developed argument to use in a class debate. Yes, I was that teacher. As I reflect on those conversations, the ideals identified and ranked as important varied, but there were some that always seemed to rise to the top in students' thinking. The most prevalent were the ideas of the Enlightenment thinkers, specifically the idea of a social contract. Americans believed that the government had a duty to protect the individual rights and freedoms of citizens, but that citizens had an equal duty to accept limits on those rights in favor of the common good, which would be achieved through citizenship, collective action, and active participation in politics and public service. My students argued that in a republic, it was the duty of the people's representatives to provide and continually guard the balance between individual benefit and that common good. This was a huge responsibility in their eyes, and one that relied on an underlying belief in the worth and value of all people, regardless of their status in society. We had some great debates on the struggles we faced to make that a reality for all. But my students believed that this was an important component for those early Americans in achieving what was best for all, rather than just some citizens. Underlying all of this was the ideal of optimism. They often argued that it took great optimism to believe that the colonies could not only overthrow the British monarchy, but also great trust in those who became responsible for creating and maintaining the American Republic when it was accomplished. As we approach Independence Day, and the recognition of the events that led to the founding of the United States, I encourage us to follow those ideals, to find worth and value in all people, to actively participate in supporting the common good through politics and public service, to trust those who are responsible for carrying out the work, and to look to the future with optimism.
Thank you to both Rachel Burns and Tracy Metcalf for that, for the pledge and for the inspiration. Go to our vice chair for a moment of silence.
I did just want to reflect in this time of moment in silence, just that we do live in the greatest nation on earth, and we're very blessed, and we need to appreciate the freedoms that we have. And if you'll join me in a moment of silence and reflect on and praying about those things, that would be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move to our consent agenda. At this point in time, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, is there a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Okay, at this point in time, we'll go ahead and move to an announcement with regard to a legal settlement. Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an announcement of a consent judgment in a case called North Carolina Department of Transportation versus Superior Real Estate et al. And among the et al., the others involved were the Moore County Board of Education. It's case number 24 CVS 0150 in Moore County. And that case has now been resolved. Moore County Schools has received a settlement check in the amount of, in a consent judgment in the amount of $10,500 from the North Carolina Department of Transportation for a small parcel of land at Aberdeen Elementary School that was condemned by the North Carolina Department of Transportation.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move to the public address to the vice chair.
Yep, we have one speaker, Mr. Jim Peterson. Got 3 minutes, and your time will start whenever you start speaking.
Okay, my name's Jim Peterson.
I'm so sorry. Let me give Mr. Batchelor just a second to get the timer ready. Thank you. All right, go for it.
My name's Jim Peterson, and I'm here because I saw on some local media about a federal suit filed against the Moore County schools from PFLAG and Public School Advocates. And then I was thinking some of them members or affiliates of Public School Advocates, I heard them mentioning that this book, Life is Funny, is a very fine book, a wonderful book. And then I think this book even went through the process of when some few books were removed. And if I remember correctly, I remember it was described as there's some vulgarity, but otherwise there's some really good life lessons in this book. I just want to read these life lessons in this book and compare it to something else. This is excerpts from different pages in the book. I don't want my brother Nick to be touching me on my privates every night, and he comes and does it anyway. Miss Hudson can suck my wad if she wants, but got to stay a while because I get slammed. They all gonna be find my mom's nodding off on 4th Avenue or fucking some dick promising a white Christmas. Then what they gonna do with Mickey? They gonna put some, I ain't gonna say that word, GD hours in Queens. They all got some kind of other kids beat the shit out of him, mess with him, make him fuck they cat. Miss Hudson want me to do shit on her so she could fix me to leave, but I ain't going nowhere because I'm not at school. I be on 4th selling shit, lifting shit, school safer, nobody fuck with me because I got 15 a month, I be big. Uh-oh, I go, we're going down the carpet, strip floor, I don't know what this means. With all these millions nice books watching, oh Lord, I'm on her, she's pressing up, I'm pressing down, wet mouth, warm skin, under thin girl shirt, palm stroking, brushing everywhere, sweaty fingers edging into my pants, crawling to my hard dick, holding, squeezing, pressing, feeling fingers stop, I want to cry. But she's pulling my hand to to her jeans, unzipped panties, elastic, heat, slippery, sweaty, fingers pushing mine inside, sliding, gliding, moving hips, one finger, two fingers, rocking, moaning, pulling, oh Lord, beautiful Keisha, wet, hot pussy fucking my fingers. Please, please, let my dick. Then someone's at my back, snatching me up, and Keisha screams. And on her feet so fast, we all run, pants open, shirts off through the books. Musty tree root, smell, soot, don't know what that means. Breathing hard, sex, and fear. And I go, feel this, put her hand on my jeans over my rock hard dick. She laughs, well damn, nothing new, and I look at her deep in her eyes. Sucking, rocking, slipping, swollen, wet, shiny pussy, pushing, pulsing, breathing, moaning, thick dick, straining, hat smells like salty balloons, sticking, rolling over, aching, stiff, sly fingers, and its tip. I think you get the point. But I got these other documents from Moore County Courthouse. This book is in Pinecrest High School. If I read these documents from the courthouse,
Thank you,
it's
thank
like
you
I'm
very
reading the
much.
Same exact thing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else? Okay, let me make one comment, and that is that while certain things are uncomfortable, this is free speech, and this is the First Amendment, and it is better not to cut someone off and just let them keep on going, and we're done. So that's my feeling on that. Let's go ahead to board action. I'm very, very sorry if that made people feel uncomfortable. Certainly made me feel uncomfortable.
Mr. Chair, a point of
Yes.
order. I mean, I think the speaker's point was that's uncomfortable, and I think his our takeaway from that should be if it's not appropriate to read out loud at a school board meeting, then maybe it's not appropriate for to be in our library. I mean, that's exactly the speaker's point.
I understand, and I
agree.
agree. I very much agree. Okay. But let's go ahead with the board action, the amended FY budget. We just discussed this in our work session a few minutes ago. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the amended FY 23-24 budget resolution for the fourth quarter? Okay, is there a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? One opposed? Okay, motion carries. 5-1. Stacy, I assume you voted yes? Okay, yes, ma'am. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the amendment of the superintendent's contract. The amendment will be to extend the superintendent's contract, and correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor, maximum of 4 years.
This amendment would extend the contract through June 30, 2028,
Okay.
4 years.
And also makes some additional other additions to the contract. Okay, is there a motion to approve the amendment to the superintendent's contract? Okay, is there a second? Okay, any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am, yes, sir.
I couldn't help but notice you said there's two tenets to this modification of the contract. The first tenet, which extends it to its maximum time of 4 years, was proudly stated out loud, but the second tenet was kind of, and miscellaneous others. So could the chair state clearly what the second tenet of the modification of the contract is?
I'm going to defer to council. You want to just give us a statement? I want to make sure that we're accurate.
This would be the second amendment to the superintendent's contract. It would extend the contract to 4 years beginning today through June 30, 2028, and it would also add a benefit of 56 comp time hours to the superintendent to use in any given fiscal year. They do not carry over into subsequent fiscal years. So
Okay.
it's, at 8 hours a day, it's 7 days of comp time.
Okay. Any further? Okay, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? There's one nay. Okay, motion carries. Okay, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board members. I appreciate the confidence you've expressed in me. Just like to take the opportunity to thank our staff for all their hard work. I think we've had I'm very proud of the work that happened over this last year. And as we launch into a new fiscal year, I'm very excited to where we're heading and very excited for the beginning of next school year. And I'd just like to wish everyone over the summer continue to have a safe, relaxing summer, and wish everyone a happy July 4th holiday. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, board members. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Board comments, Mr. Hensley.
I have nothing.
Okay, Ms. Bruno.
I just want to wish everybody a happy summer, and thank you for all the work that's being done here at the school. Happy 4th of July, and you know, when you're eating your hot dogs, stop and think about our veterans, stop and think about our country, stop and think about all the wonderful things that we have in our country and our way of life. We should be so grateful. That's all.
Okay, Ms. Caldwell.
Nothing. I just thank you guys for giving me the patience of being online today, because I know it is sometimes difficult. So thank you for letting me join.
And we very much appreciate you for being here. Go ahead.
First of all, last week received a message from Master Sergeant William Jefferson, who was the senior NCO at the Pinecrest Air Force Junior ROTC. He was relating the previous week the performance of his cadets at the Fayetteville State University Cadet Leadership Course. 10 high schools were represented and about 101 cadets. Pinecrest virtually swept the field of first place performance. Really, really impressive. I would sure like to be able, for the board, one of these days, to be able to recognize them for that effort, because the whole build-up, the build-up prior to that performance was really what counts in here. The second thing is, about 10 years ago, my family and I decided to read the Declaration of Independence in order to kick off our July 4th celebrations. That really added some meaning to the whole process. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I think the last paragraph of the Declaration of Independence expresses the real profundity, the depth of what this was all about. And may I read it to you? We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiances to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that, as free independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance in the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Have a great 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benway. Ms. Davis.
I can't beat Ken this time. So happy 4th of July. And I do firmly believe we live in the greatest nation on earth, and I'm thankful that we do.
Okay. And I just want to thank everyone, and once again, remembering we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that we're endowed by their creator. Their creator, God, with certain inalienable rights. You know, one of the things that we have to remember is that the fundamental revolutionary idea of the United States is not that God gives the right to the king to rule, and it is not that God gives the right to government to rule. The Declaration of Independence says that God gave it to the people to rule, and it destroyed the whole idea of the divine right of kings. And that is the essence of the American Revolution, that there is a creator God, and he gave the right to govern to the people themselves so that they can give it from time to time to a government to do their bidding from time to time. But those rights are the rights of the people. So that is extremely important. So we do wish everyone a very, very good 4th of July and a good Independence Day. And we'll look forward to another great academic year. And congratulations once again, Dr. Locklear. I want to say that this board gives you our confidence, and in extending your contract, we want to tell the entire county of Moore, we want to tell everyone that we not only approve of the work that you're doing, but we're very, very proud of your development of the Moore County way. And we're proud of you, and we thank you, and we're looking forward to many more years, at least 4, many more years to come.
Thank you, sir. We have an incredible team. Thank you, and to the board.
Thank you. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, is there a second? Okay, all those in favor, aye. Aye. We're stand adjourned.